My ex-girlfriend, Lily Lynn, dumped me at the altar for her male best friend, humiliating my entire family. After the breakup, she sabotaged 9 of my blind dates. On the 10th, she was sitting right across from me. Ethan, can we start over? Her voice was tinged with urgency. After I rejected her, she kept bothering me, even breaking her leg. The girl I once loved so deeply almost made me feel soft-hearted. Mr. Liu, you have excellent qualities in every way. I'm very satisfied, Grace said with a smile and a glint of expectation in her eyes. The girl across from me was beautiful, had a stunning figure, and spoke in a way that resonated with me. Having her by my side and getting married might be a good choice. Ms. Gu, you're also excellent, I replied. A flash of joy crossed her eyes, and a smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Can we go out again? To be honest, Ms. Gu, I think we're a good match. If possible, I hope we can settle things between us quickly, I said firmly. I tapped the table lightly with my index finger. There was a movement from the chair behind me, and my phone buzzed. I didn't even need to look to know who had sent the message. Lily Lynn, my first love, and the only ex-girlfriend I've ever had, was sitting right behind me. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Lily Lynn walked over and squeezed me to the window. Ms. Gu, right? Hello, I'm Ethan's first love, Lily Lynn. We've known each other for 12 years and been together for 8. She introduced herself, her tone laced with provocation. Grace was stunned for a moment, then regained her composure and extended her hand politely. Hello, I'm Grace. Ms. Lynn, nice to meet you. Thank you for taking care of Ethan all these years. Now that I'm by his side, you can rest assured, Lily Lynn said dismissively. In an instant, their eyes met, as if sparks were flying. I propped up my chin, feigning indifference, a hint of amusement in my eyes. Lily Lynn gritted her teeth, a mocking smile on her lips. Ms. Gu, some things are said too soon. You and Ethan aren't together yet. Just a blind date. Before you, Ethan went on 8 others. Her tone was sharp. Grace remained calm and replied leisurely. Not being together now doesn't mean we won't be together in the future. Maybe I'm Ethan's destiny? Lily Lynn's face instantly turned ugly, and her hands trembled slightly, clearly reaching the peak of anger. Enough! I couldn't take it anymore and scolded. Lily Lynn, you're 26 years old. Can you be more mature? She froze, tears welling up in her eyes, drowning out her rebuttal. My heart couldn't help but soften, but I quickly calmed down. Lily Lynn was the anchor of my youth. I once thought she was my final destination, but she abandoned me at our wedding 2 years ago, making me a laughingstock in the eyes of family and friends. Ethan, please give me another chance, she sobbed softly, tears streaming down her face, filled with despair. I don't have another 8 years to waste on your nonsense. Grace is my girlfriend. Don't come looking for me again, I said coldly. Her body staggered. A trace of loss flashed in her eyes, and tears fell. My heart trembled slightly. However, her heart no longer belonged to me. My youth couldn't bring back her immature choices. Ethan, are you crazy? You've only known each other for less than 2 hours. Lily Lynn responded excitedly. I've decided to start over, and I hope you will too, I said resolutely, walking toward Grace and putting my arm around her shoulder. Ms. Lynn, you have to be able to let go. It's obvious that Ethan doesn't love you anymore, Grace said gently, her eyes firm. The sadness in Lily Lynn's eyes became more and more obvious, and her hands trembled slightly, as if she couldn't accept this fact. I didn't give her any more chances and turned away resolutely, leaving with Grace. Ethan, Ms. Lynn might need some peace and quiet. Let's go, she reminded me softly. I felt relieved, finally free from this entanglement. I didn't want to go through another blind date. In the car, as Grace fastened my seatbelt, I realized, Ms. Gu, I drove here myself. You don't need to drive me home. Mr. Liu, I know you were acting to make your first love jealous, but I'm serious about you. Her seriousness startled me. Let's start as friends first. A whirlwind romance and marriage aren't good for either of us. I hesitated slightly. It was love at first sight. I just couldn't help myself. Her eyes were firm, making it impossible for me to ignore her. At that moment, my phone rang, and my mom's gentle voice came through. Ethan, how did today's blind date go? Was it successful? I glanced at Grace, who was smiling, and replied in a low voice, It went okay, Mom. I'm about to go home. I'll talk to you later. Just as I was about to hang up, my mom started roaring like a lion. Ethan, What do you mean, okay? Did you hit it off or not? I've arranged this 9th blind date for you. If you mess this up again, where am I supposed to put my face? I'm telling you, if you don't bring a girlfriend home by Chinese New Year, don't bother coming home. You're an eyesore. Go sleep on the streets. It seemed like she was really getting desperate. Starting from the beginning of the month, I had a blind date every 2 or 3 days. I was almost done with all the high-quality girls introduced by friends and family, but every time it was a failure. I got a reputation for being fickle, and my whole family looked down on me. I had Lily Lynn to thank for all of this. If she hadn't sabotaged me every time, I would have settled down long ago. After hanging up, Grace turned her face away, her shoulders shaking. Ms. Gu, you can laugh if you want. You don't have to hold it in. She turned her head, and the corners of her mouth turned up. Mr. Liu, can I call you Ethan from now on? Don't be too formal either. Just call me Grace. I raised an eyebrow, taking it as a tacit agreement. The thought of my mom's threats made my head hurt, and I sighed. There were only 2 days left until Chinese New Year, and my mom had given me a death order. Grace raised her hand and twirled a strand of hair, smiling charmingly. Ethan, I think we're a good match. Won't you consider it? I was about to refuse, but my phone vibrated again. It was another message from my mom. Ethan, this is your last warning. If you don't bring a girlfriend back, don't come home and annoy me. The words of refusal that were about to come out were swallowed back. Grace, let's try it out. How about coming home with me for dinner on Chinese New Year's Eve? After separating from Grace, I drove home alone and saw Lily Lynn downstairs. As soon as I parked, she stepped forward, opened the car door, and looked around, checking something. After confirming that I was the only one in the car, she breathed a sigh of relief. Ethan, you're not with that Gu woman, right? I knew it. No one is better than me, your first love. The person who understands you best in this world is... I interrupted her directly. Lily Lynn, I'm with her now, and I'm taking her home to meet my parents on Chinese New Year's Eve. Her babbling was like a swarm of flies buzzing in my ears, annoying me. I might have thought it was because she cared about me before, but now it just felt noisy. The smile on her face faded little by little, and she said blankly, Ethan, what did you say? Can't be true, right? You've only known each other for a short time. How can you take her home? What did she do to you? Did you sleep with her? I knew it. She looked so flirtatious. She's not a good woman. She grabbed my shoulders tightly, her long nails digging into my flesh. I felt a pang of pain, but she didn't care and didn't loosen her grip. I couldn't take it anymore and pushed her away. She lost her balance and fell directly to the ground. Lily Lynn, don't think everyone is as dirty as you. Nothing happened between us. I chose to take her home because I approve of her as a person. She's a good fit for me. Her family background, education, and personality all match mine. Lily Lynn looked up, tears streaming down her face again. She was wearing very thin clothes, shivering slightly in the cold wind, looking weak, pitiful, and helpless. I looked away, locked the car, and walked straight into the apartment building without looking at her again. Ethan, is there really no chance for us? Are you sure there's nothing wrong with her? Have you checked her background? My intuition tells me she's not a good woman. Her tearful voice was a bit harsh. I suppressed the uneasiness in my heart, stopped, but didn't turn back. Lily Lynn, even if I were with a dog, I wouldn't choose you again. Don't waste your time on me. Let go of the past. Behind me came the sound of sobbing. I clenched my fists in my coat pockets, my nails digging into my palms. It hurt a little, but I didn't seem to notice. After I told my mom that I was bringing Grace home for Chinese New Year's Eve, her attitude did a complete 180. She started discussing with my dad what dishes to prepare and even transferred several thousand yuan to me to buy gifts for Grace. I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. It seemed she was quite invested in this matter. 2 years ago, I was dumped at my wedding, and our family became a laughingstock. I still hadn't settled down, and my parents had endured countless jabs behind their backs. They've always been proud, but because of me, their unfilial son, they've suffered too much. On Chinese New Year's Eve, I met Grace at the large supermarket downstairs. After picking out the gifts, I was about to pay when she quickly scanned the QR code first. Ethan, today I'm the one visiting, so it's only right that I buy the gifts. Let it be my gesture. There's no way I'm letting you pay. My grip on my phone tightened. Lily Lynn had always spent my money, even buying gifts for her male friend on my card. During those years together, I felt like an ATM. When I got to the front door, I pulled out my keys to unlock it, but the door was yanked open by my mom, whose smile was as bright as ever. "Ah, Grace, you look so lovely. A perfect match for my Ethan." My mom took the gifts from Grace's hands and shoved them into mine, warmly pulling her inside as if I were just a tool for her. "I've heard you're a university professor? That's wonderful." Grace handled it all with ease, and by the time I came out with the things, she had already charmed my mom. "Mom, where's Dad?" Without even looking at me, my mom replied, "He's in the kitchen. You should help out with a few dishes tonight and show off your cooking skills to Grace." I was about to escape but turned back when Grace grabbed my arm. "You don't need to cook. Ethan, you and Auntie can just watch TV while I help Uncle." My mom's gaze became even more loving. "Ethan, Grace is really wonderful. Your Aunt Jean has found you a good one this time." I smiled quietly. Aunt Jean was well known in our neighborhood as a matchmaker. She had successfully paired off many couples. My mom praised Grace nonstop, and I listened absently, nodding occasionally. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Grace was indeed virtuous, polite, and emotionally supportive, a high-value partner. Lost in thought, the two in the kitchen brought out dish after dish. Now my dad was also on board. "Ethan, most of these dishes were made by Grace. I just named a few of your favorites, and she whipped them up. The more I see her, the more I like her. Miles better than that last one. Old Lynn, why bring that ungrateful wretch up on a good day?" My dad quickly shut up. After Grace arranged the dishes, she curiously asked, "Uncle, Auntie, were you talking about Lily Lynn?" My mom was surprised. "Grace, you know her too?" I shot several glances at Grace. She hesitated, and my mom shot me a fierce look. "Ethan, what are you giving her those weird looks for?" "Grace, feel free to speak." I closed my mouth and Grace, looking troubled, finally spoke up. "Auntie, when Ethan and I went on a blind date, Lily Lynn was there. I heard Ethan had 8 blind dates that didn't work out, and I suspect she was sabotaging them." My parents' faces turned pale with anger. My dad slammed his hand on the table. "That ungrateful wretch, what does she want?" My mom angrily shouted. "She just doesn't want Ethan to be happy. That heartless thing." Grace quickly stepped in to calm them down, and a few words were enough to diffuse their anger. Halfway through dinner, the doorbell rang. "That must be Aunt Jean. Ethan, hurry and answer the door." I put down my chopsticks and headed to the front door. I opened it, and it wasn't Aunt Jean. It was Lily Lynn. My instinct was to slam the door shut, but she wedged herself in, forcing her way through. "Ethan, I know Grace is here today. I'm here to expose her for who she really is." She marched straight to the dining table. "Grace, you promiscuous gold digger." My parents glared at her, but Grace stood up calmly and coldly looked at Lily Lynn. "Miss Lynn, is there anything that can't wait until after dinner? Why are you ruining the mood? Lily Lynn, you're not welcome here. Get out, or I'll call the police." My mom shouted angrily. I crossed my arms and decided to watch. Little did I know, Lily Lynn yanked me right into the fray. "Ethan, come here. You're a party to this. You need to see her true colors today." She pulled out a dossier from her bag and laid it in front of me. I flipped through the pages, feeling a chill run down my spine. I thought I had found a rare gem, but it turned out she was nothing but a used plaything. Seeing my expression change, my parents came over to look. My mom grabbed the pictures and hurled them at Grace. "What's going on here? Grace, you better explain yourself." All eyes were on her. I thought she would panic or defend herself, but surprisingly, she remained calm. "Well, since the truth is out, there's not much to say. I thought I could play this card for a while, but it seems I've been found out so quickly. Lily Lynn, it's clear you care about him, but you're just too foolish." Lily Lynn's eyes turned red as she lunged at Grace like a wild lion, starting a fierce fight. "You shameless brat. This is between me and Ethan. You have no right to interfere." Grace wasn't backing down either. They went at it, wrestling fiercely. My parents were about to intervene, but I stopped them. "Mom, Dad, they're really into it. If you go in, you might get hurt. Just let them tire themselves out." Both had visible bruises, but Grace clearly had the upper hand. It was almost one-sided punishment. Yet Lily Lynn, seemingly fueled by something, kept getting back up, no matter how often she was thrown down. Grace wiped the blood from her mouth with disdain, looking at Lily Lynn. "Lily Lynn, the fact that you managed to scratch me means you've got some strength. But let me give you a piece of advice before I go. Don't be wishy-washy, or you'll end up stuck. I might be a gold digger, but I only go after one target at a time, unlike you. Reflect on why Ethan didn't choose you. Lily Lynn lay on the ground like a beaten dog. I stood there, looking down at her. My parents rushed forward, wanting to help her up. Little Lynn, are you okay? She wiped the dirt from her face and forced a smile. Uncle, Auntie, I'm fine. As long as Ethan isn't being fooled, I'm okay with anything. My parents exchanged glances but said nothing more, instead insisting I take her to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, the car was filled with silence. I couldn't help breaking it. How did you find out Grace was trouble? She shrugged slightly. Ryan has a buddy who went on a blind date with her 2 years ago and was swindled out of everything. He was so distraught he almost jumped off a building. When I left you at the altar, it was Ryan who asked me to help save him. I fell silent, so I really misjudged her. Grace was just a gold digger targeting those easy-to-fool older single men, emptying their pockets and then moving on. It turned out Lily Lynn's runaway bride act was somewhat understandable. If Ryan was about to jump, what could you do? I frowned. She blushed slightly, looking embarrassed. He once pursued me, but I turned him down. He wanted me to talk him down from the ledge using our past feelings. After she ditched me, I was like a headless chicken, running everywhere. I thought she had chosen Ryan over me, and the pain was unbearable. I didn't want to hear her explanation. So even after I knew she was looking for me, I kept moving forward. Later, when I was abroad, I met a girl and we started a business, achieving some success. But I always missed my homeland. My parents were here, so I had to return. 2 months ago, after coming back, my parents began pushing me into blind dates. I used work as an excuse for a month, but ultimately, I couldn't resist their nagging. As soon as I returned, Lily Lynn seemed to know, and for the past 2 months, she had followed me like a shadow. She even quit her 6-figure job to join my company, taking a pay cut of 1/3. After taking her to see the doctor, I sent her back to the Liu family. Her parents were abroad, and she was alone. She only had a few superficial injuries and could manage herself, so I left, even when she cried and begged me to stay. My feelings for her were tangled and confusing, but I knew they were chaotic. When I got home, it was already 11. My parents were still awake, sitting upright in the living room waiting for me. Ethan, come here. Your dad and I need to talk to you, my mom said, grabbing my hand. Ethan, I've noticed that Lily still has feelings for you. Why else would she ruin your 8 blind dates? Those 2 years have been tough for her too. She's been searching for you everywhere. Whenever she comes back to Jiangxing, she visits us. Even though she gets kicked out, her persistence is admirable. My dad joined in. Ethan, bottom line. What do you think? Should you reconsider her? I was silent for a long time, my thoughts a chaotic mess. Finally, I said I would think about it and stood up to return to my room. I buried my face in the pillow, memories of my past with Lily flooding my mind like a slideshow. I sighed. Deep down, I couldn't let go of her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let her sabotage my 8 blind dates. Early the next morning, Lily Lynn's car was already parked downstairs at my apartment. Ethan, I'm here to take you to work. I hesitated for 3 seconds before deciding not to get in her car, opting instead to get into my own. Later that afternoon, just before the end of the workday, my mom sent me a message. Ethan, there's another blind date tonight. I'll send you the address. You'll definitely be satisfied with this one. Though I was somewhat resistant to blind dates, I couldn't go against my mom's wishes. The appointment was set for 6:30 p.m. at a cafe right downstairs from my office. I arrived a little over 10 minutes early. As I was scrolling through my social media, someone sat down across from me. I looked up and was shocked to see Lily Lynn. She had changed her outfit, styled her hair perfectly, and her makeup was done in my favorite style. Ethan, can we start over? She clasped her hands nervously, looking like a job applicant waiting for an interview result. I felt a smile creeping in but tried to maintain a serious demeanor. Lily Lynn, you know I don't go back to old flames. Expired love is bound to upset your stomach. Her smile, which had lit up her face, quickly faded, only to return as the emotional girl I remembered. Ethan, I promise I won't disappoint you this time. Let's try again. Okay? I'm determined to choose you. Tears glistened in her eyes as onlookers turned to watch, and I grew embarrassed, standing up to leave. But she was quicker, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Her face pressed against my back as her voice trembled. Ethan, just one more chance, please. I can't live without you. I wanted to break free, but she held me tighter, almost as if trying to suffocate me. Lily Lynn, can we step outside to talk? I don't want to be a spectacle. Perhaps my tone was too harsh, as she slowly released her grip, transitioning to holding my hand. Ethan, please don't run away. With a resigned laugh, I paid and we exited the cafe. As soon as we got in the car, she looped her arms around my neck and kissed me. After such a long time without kissing, I nearly found it hard to breathe, caught off guard by the intensity of her kiss. When it ended, she slumped against me. I pushed her away and wiped my lips with a napkin. Lily Lynn, we're not together yet. This only makes me dislike you more. Her small, red nose scrunched up as tears welled in her eyes, making her look pitiful. I felt my heart soften for a moment, but it was fleeting. Ethan, I promise I won't do this again. I'll always ask for your permission before I kiss you. I know you can't accept me right now, but I've been looking for you for 2 years. I have plenty of time. If I could make you love me once, I can make you love me again. Her eyes sparkled, bright and intense, almost blinding me. I didn't reply and opened the car door, stepping out. In the following days, she continued to pick me up and drop me off at work, bringing breakfast for my parents and me. I never got into her car. It was always her insisting on joining me in mine. She was relentless, and my parents began to accept her again, turning a blind eye to her persistence. The company's spring festival break started the day before New Year's Eve, and during this time we saw each other almost every day. I thought she would give up once the holiday began, but on New Year's morning, she showed up again. I had been looking forward to sleeping in, but when I got up, I found Lily Lynn happily making dumplings with my parents. Upon seeing me, she waved a spatula in the air. Ethan, the dumplings will be ready soon. Aren't you hungry? She smiled brightly, seemingly untouched by my earlier indifference. I slammed my bedroom door and dressed properly before coming out. To her, I still felt like a stranger, and in front of others I couldn't just lounge around in my pajamas. My dear, now that you've changed, it's so obvious, my mom said with a teasing look, leaning in to whisper, Ethan, you still have feelings for Lily, don't you? Men all want to impress the women they like. You're acting a bit strange. I rolled my eyes, feeling a bit flustered. Would Lily Lynn misunderstand? When I looked up, she was indeed gazing at me with sparkling eyes. Ethan, you look so handsome today. I turned my face away, feeling my cheeks heat up. That day, Lily Lynn stayed at my house, attempting to learn cooking from my dad, who was teaching her how to prepare dishes. Ethan doesn't like to cook, so I'll have to do it from now on. I need to learn. My parents' admiration for her grew even stronger. On New Year's Eve, she suggested we go out to set off fireworks. Initially reluctant, I eventually agreed when my parents urged me to join her. She drove us to a special beach for fireworks, setting everything up an hour before midnight. A few of her friends came along, and as we lit off small fireworks, she took pictures of me. It felt familiar. It was reminiscent of our past together. Over the years, she had honed her photography skills and captured every moment beautifully. As the clock neared midnight, she asked me to carry her onto the car roof, insisting it was the best spot for viewing fireworks. Ethan, from here, the fireworks appear their best. As the clock struck 12, fireworks exploded all around, dazzling my eyes and igniting the long-dormant feelings in my heart. This was a new way to enjoy fireworks, and Lily Lynn was right beside me, her gaze fixed on me rather than the spectacular pyrotechnics. As one volley fizzled out, I turned to meet her deep, emotional gaze, and it felt as if my heart had dropped. In a sudden shift, I slipped and fell off the car roof, but she was quicker, becoming my makeshift cushion. I landed on her legs, and I could have sworn I heard a crack. Amidst the chaos and the continued fireworks, we ended up at the hospital. Her leg was indeed broken, but fortunately it wasn't serious. She would recover in 10 days or so. I intended to go to her house to care for her, but with her parents back, that plan was scrapped. Still, even with her injury, she managed to come see me, simply wanting to catch a glimpse of me. In that moment, I felt her sincerity, and the icy barrier in my heart began to thaw. The day before Lantern Festival, I texted her, Lily Lynn, let's meet at the school's track at 8 p.m. tomorrow. I have something important to tell you. That very track was where she had confessed her feelings for me, our place. It had always been her chasing me. This time I wanted to take the initiative. She replied with an enthusiastic okay, along with a sticker. On Lantern Festival, I prepared flowers and lights, arriving at the school by 6. Since classes hadn't resumed yet, the security guard recognized me and let me through without issue, though his knowing smile left me feeling slightly uneasy. I parked my car and, as I walked toward the track, was awestruck by the sight before me. The ground was strewn with flowers and fairy lights, forming a heart shape. In the center stood a dreamlike stage with a piano. Lily Lynn was dressed in an exquisite little dress, her hair perfectly styled, looking like a fairy who had descended from the heavens, stunningly beautiful. As soon as I appeared, the piano began to play. She played beautifully while gazing at me with intense passion, her eyes filled with warmth. My heart raced. It felt like it might leap right out of my chest. When the song ended, my eyes grew a bit misty. She approached me, holding a bouquet of flowers, dropping to one knee. "Ethan, you've always spoiled and cared for me. Can I do the same for you this time? Last time, you proposed to me. This time, can I ask you? Will you marry me?" I fought back tears and looked down at the bouquet, which held a ring, the very one we had chosen for our wedding. I couldn't believe it. I thought I had tossed it into the school's artificial lake, yet here it was, returned. "I do." I took the bouquet, reaching out my hand toward her. The dazzling ring slid onto my finger, and as she stood up, she extended her hand toward me as well. I slid the ring onto her finger, our hands entwined tightly, and we kissed passionately, forgetting the world around us. The applause around us rolled like thunder. This convoluted and lengthy romance, from school uniforms to wedding dresses, had finally reached its beautiful conclusion. A dream come true.